welcome you all on the first Nayanta conversation of Residency 2. And looking at how engaged the participants, all of you were in the conversations in the last residency, I have adequately warned Sanjeev that we will keep lots of time for question, answer and interaction. So you will get that space. But I begin by thanking Sanjeev, first of all, for visiting the campus. And we've taken Sanjeev around and shown him the campus. And we had lots of interesting interaction, which I will try and weave in the conversation. But more importantly, to find time.
Of course.
And as I was telling Sanjeev in the introduction, when I was introducing myself, I said, having done this many times, I do my research and I do my little bit of videos and articles. And you try and form a picture of the person. And I told Sanjeev that it was very, very interesting to see some traits shining so brightly, even in the basic research, but also how difficult it was to find information on Sanjeev. So clearly, while he is in a very public-facing role, which is the chairman of PwC India, he seems to be someone who is a private person. We will try and get the persona of Sanjeev and the leadership of Sanjeev alive for you. We'll give it a try. And the very brief introduction, and then we will get into the conversation. Sanjeev is a lifer at PwC. And in today's day and age, when most people change careers at short interval, sometime a very, very short interval, he's someone who's been at PwC from 1991.
That's right.
And from 2006, he is the chairman of the PwC India.
2021.
2021, he's the chairman of PwC. He's also worked in Sweden for a stint with PwC, and we'll come to that. But at the heart, Sanjeev is a Delhi person. And so let's begin there, if you're okay, Sanjeev. Your early life, your role models, your heroes, your experience growing up.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me over. And really want to thank everybody for making it happen. And of course, my colleague Ruchi for making sure that, I engaged. And I'm so glad that I did. So once again, thank you. And I just went around the campus. It's a beautiful green campus. And, from what I gather, it's going to go places in a couple of years. And I wish you all the very best. And of course, this cohort, I was just part of the design thinking group a little bit. I only wish I could spend more time. So, really kudos to all of you to take out the time. And my journey, if I were to say, yes, I grew up as a Delhi boy, as you said. Very middle class upbringing, if I may. My family belonged to Meerut. We relocated to Ambala for reasons of work and livelihood, if I may. And then after a number of failed attempts at business, my grandfather decided that his kids ought to do something more meaningful. So in sequence, he sent both his kids, my father and my uncle, to Delhi to become chartered accountants because that was possibly, as my father used to describe it, the only professional education that did not need an exam in those days. So both of them came into Delhi one by one. And, the CF fraternity in Delhi was pretty small at that point in time. So eventually the circle that they were part of became, quite well known in the Delhi circles. But again, as I said, very middle class upbringing, and that's how we grew up. Unfortunately, my grandfather, when he left us, he was the contractor for Delhi Cat, and the family had suffered significant losses because of the Delhi Can construction, because the 1971 war was happening at that point in time. So the family was in not so great financial condition, if I may. And I think that's what has stayed with the family ever since. I think the value for everything that we have today, the value for everything that we have got so far, keeps us humble, keeps us in a space where if we have more, we acknowledge it. If we have less, it doesn't bother us too much. And I think that's something which the family has been proud of over the years. Now, touch wood, most kids are doing well. I keep telling my kids that they are the more fortunate ones because they haven't seen some of the times that we saw as a family. My uncle actually left India to work overseas to pay the family debts, and I think that was a story for many Indian families in those days, etc. So yeah, I mean, very middle class upbringing. I must say that when I got to the stage where I had to decide my career, of course, I wanted to do economics, which is a subject that I love. I wanted to do an MBA at that point in time, but after 2 failed attempts, where I could actually, get through all the written examinations for all the IMs and others in those days, but fail all the group discussions, I decided that I should do what my father did, which was take the easy route out, which is to get into something which did not require an examination. So I went into CA as well. And well, I mean, I was fortunate that PwC took me as an articles clerk back in '91, and that's how it has been.
And then fascinating how you say the easy way. Those of us, when we saw at CA, we used to get really scared that to become a CA is probably far more diligent work than any MBAs. But I'm intrigued by something you touched and slightly going off chronology. You mentioned the middle class family, you mentioned the little anecdote of financial struggle. A lot of us are probably the children of liberalization and the wealth that came with it. But the generation that we are fostering or fathering haven't seen the similar amount of difficult times or financial difficulties. I would assume the same would be for your daughter and son.
Yeah.
How do you still not deprive them of the joys that come with wealth creation, but still instill those, what I loosely call middle class values? What are your thoughts on that? Because that's a challenge I see a lot of people feel.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that that really goes, the first thing I would say, I lost my father and my mother over a 18 months period over last 2 years. The first thing was that we always were a joint family. I somehow believe that the concept of joint family, even today, like my parents have left us, but my brother and me live together. So he has 2 floors, I have 2 floors. We live together. So it's not as if that we see each other every day, but we try and do a meal together on a Sunday afternoon or something like that, which is what my mother used to do when she was with us. So I think just having the grandparents with you, I think it sort of instills the same, I would like to believe that, my kids were fortunate. Certainly my brother's daughter, I think, was similar, that they grew up with their grandparents around them. And in some ways, they got the same feeling and they got the same learnings, which possibly my brother and I did. I mean, my father would say to my daughter that, you should save 70% of what you earn, 70% of what you earn. And my daughter, of course, she was the first girl child in 3 generations in the family. She said to my father that, Dadu, how can you survive in 70 and 30%? And my father's response was, which is something which I will always use for any other conversations, hopefully later, I don't know, is that if that 30% is not good enough, earn more. If the 30% is not good enough, earn more, but you should save 70%. I mean, effectively, not spend more than 30% on your base, on your existence. And I suppose I didn't have to do much as far as my kids are concerned. They were fortunate enough to be around growing up when my parents were there. And I would just owe it to the joint family concept that India, largely has embraced over the years. Now I know that, there are a lot of nuclear families, and that's fine as well. But I would just say that my kids are a bit fortunate that way.
And then the move from Delhi to Mumbai.
Yes.
And it's interesting when you talk about that move, you talk about that move as a very significant moment in your life. Wasn't now listening to you because you were moving away from that family, or was it the unknown of the professional, or what did that move mean? And
Well, I think that move was significant for multiple reasons as far as I'm concerned. One was it was time of great anxiety for me because I knew that the firm regarded me well by then. And, everybody aspires, I like to believe even now, but certainly at that point in time, I aspired to be a partner in the firm. So I was very intrigued as to why, when the time is for all my hard work to pay off, I've been asked to move from Delhi to Mumbai, which was outside my comfort zone, so to speak. I'd been to Sweden, as you mentioned, a couple of years, and started working with private equity clients in Sweden and then in London. But most of my clients were in Delhi, in the Delhi region. All the large Delhi families, etc., I'd worked with over the years. Already been part of a couple of family settlements and stuff like that. So when I was asked to move to Mumbai, I was left wondering as to why am I being asked to move to Mumbai, right? And of course, my partner at the time had a reason that we know that you can survive here well, but we want to make sure that you are a bit uncomfortable. And I said, you didn't become a partner being uncomfortable, so why am I being chosen to be a partner in the firm by making me uncomfortable? But be that as it may, the reason that it was the most pivotal moment was, one, it of course made me uncomfortable. It of course took me out of my comfort zone, because until then, if I can be slightly modest, I would say, I was just focusing on doing good work, that I need to do good work and my clients love me, etc., etc. What I did not focus too much on was, how do I actually converse with 20 clients or 20 people that I do not know? How do I strike a conversation with them? And how do I make sure that I'm able to leverage my personal networks, my social networks, my professional networks for what I wish to do with them, etc. And I think coming to Mumbai back in 2005, actually, as like my father used to say, colloquial in Hindi, marta kya na karta kinds. He said that, you have no option. You have no option. Get out of a comfort zone and just do it. And that's exactly what I did. To me, the difference between being in Delhi until 2005, just putting my head down and just creating great outcomes for my clients, as opposed to creating business and creating my own portfolio ever since. And, I have to say that I never had to look back. And you asked the question about role models and stuff. For me, as with, I suppose, with many other kids, certainly I can't say about my kids, but I can certainly say about myself, was my father. There are many anecdotes and stories that I can narrate, and but yes, he just encouraged me to do what I eventually did, and I'm so grateful for all his advice.
And how much, we would love to hear some of those anecdotes, whatever you feel comfortable with. You mentioned getting out of your comfort zone. I'll circle back, but I want to go back to the Sweden one, because that's another getting out of your comfort zone in a big manner.
Yeah.
Culturally, how was it working with a world which is so much more different?
Yeah.
And tell us about your experience there.
Well, I looked at this was a tour of duty that we did back in '98 to 2000, mid of 2000. So it was about a little less than 2 years. Again, the other important person in my life, which was my wife, we married back in December of '98. And I think she made it easy. As I mentioned, we had a very middle-class upbringing, and she came from a middle-class family as well, but from the armed forces. So she was pretty adept at, I think she had moved 6 or 7 colleges or schools and colleges over her, including studying in Islamabad, in Pakistan, where my father was all
Post-partition.
Post-partition, yeah. Where my father-in-law was posted between 85 and 88. So
Was that foreign services?
yes, he was in the military, armed forces. So he was a military attaché at that point in time. So I think she made it easy, right? I must say that left to myself, I would have just worked, but she made it easy. She made it fun. She helped me. I mean, it's very cold, etc. I mean, it's different. I've been once or twice outside of India until then, but the thought of being outside of India for almost 22 odd months was a bit daunting. But she made it easy, and eventually, we came back having seen a little bit of the world. But more importantly, I think the move to Bombay eventually was not so hard because I'd spent a couple of years outside my very protected family environment back in 98 and 2000. So that helped, certainly helped.
And yeah, the food is nothing to write home about in Sweden, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think it was difficult. It was difficult. I mean, I was at least used to one hot meal, which was also hard until my wife joined me. And I must admit that cooking is certainly not her forte. So but we somehow managed to survive for 18 months together. But it was a different culture. It's a different culture. People love the outdoors. People love being in nature. Anybody can strike a conversation with anybody else. I remember sitting in a cafe in the old part of Stockholm, and a couple of young kids just came. I mean, possibly would have been college kids or whatever. They came to my wife and I started conversing with us, and for a moment we were thinking, maybe we were being a bit stereotypical. One of them was Iranian, right? And we were wondering as to what this was all about. 99. People, and one of them was a Swedish guy. So initially we thought, why? I mean, what do they want from us, etc. I mean, but they were just trying to strike a conversation because people don't meet so many people, right? I mean, friendships could be transient there, and they just wanted to sort of converse. And the Iranian person eventually became a very good friend of ours during those.
Just from the casual conversations.
Just from those casual conversations, right? And eventually, I still remember that we from that casual meeting to get them and his wife to come over to our home for dinner and so on and so forth. That's something that we learned. I mean, it was certainly new for me, but possibly not so much for my wife. But it certainly was new for me that somebody would come to you in a cafe and start having a conversation, and eventually you'll go to their home and invite them over. I possibly would not have seen that coming until I got into Stockholm. So I must say that, the work-wise, yes, it was very different from what I used to do in India. I never worked with a private equity, client until then. And in Stockholm, I started working with private equity people. Very different rhythm of working, very different way they look at businesses. I was in deals and M&A, but they had a very different way to look at deals and M&A as well. And, I think it kept me in good stead because, private equity was coming to India soon after I landed. So in 2002 or 2003, I think Warburg Pincus made their first investment, and, it just got me. I was possibly more prepared for that client segment than many of my teammates back in India. So, yeah, I mean, I think that experience, I won't trade it for anything. And the added advantage I had was that I was, English is a second language in Sweden. But I was a little bit more fluent in English, even though I have not so great English. But I used to be used as the English-speaking resource in Stockholm. So I got to travel quite a bit. I did a lot of deals in Norway, London, of course, Germany. So I got to travel a little bit. As I said, I mean, I won't trade it for anything else.
Lovely to see the smile it still brings as you were narrating the Iranian incident or the Sweden incident. Clearly a lovely period of the time.
Yeah, of course. We loved our time there. And
going back, you mentioned twice that, in Delhi you were putting your head down, doing your work.
Yeah.
Putting your head down, delivering for the client.
Yeah.
And, we do some kind of lot of coaching work I do. And there's a lot of misconception that as long as I'm putting my head down and doing my work, everything else should follow. But in your case, one, you had to go out of your comfort zone. And now within your team, I'm sure there are people who I'm putting my head down and doing my work. Why shouldn't things just happen for me?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you picked up the topic, which has been a matter of great discussion with my kids, and I mean, with many other people that I've mentored and coached over the years, etc. And I must say that my own perspective has changed on this over the years. I mean, I felt the same way for myself, that if I'm doing good work, I don't need to, go and tom the good work that I'm doing. I mean, people should see, and they should acknowledge me for who I am, right? And the value that I bring. But I must say that the world has changed around us. The world has changed around us. The ecosystem has changed. Maybe there are too many of us who are doing good work, and maybe fewer opportunities. But be that as it may, I think today I see that we are all different beings, right? I mean, I'm not saying that blow your trumpet all the time, but and I see a lot of interesting behavior in my own organization at various points in time. But I certainly see that it is important for your ecosystem to know what you're doing, how you're contributing, because at times it does happen. It does happen that what is not in your eyesight is not on top of your mind, and what's not on top of your mind doesn't get counted. Let me share with you another very interesting anecdote, and which is what made me feel that not only do you need to say the right things, you need to be visible, you need to have a voice. And this was very, very long back when I mentioned to you that I passed all my CAT exams, but I failed all my group discussions. So there was a very interesting group discussion in 91. Because I was an economics student, so this was about the economic effect of the Kuwait-Iraq war. So when that topic came, it was I am Calcutta. I thought this is my topic. I will ace it, right? And it was a group discussion, and in those days, certainly the group discussions were very chaotic. Everybody used to speak over each other.
I don't think that has changed.
So I mean, I haven't been 92. I did one, but 91 was the only time that I did so many of them. But I still remember the Joka one, I'm Calcutta one, and I was not getting a chance to speak, and I was trying my best. And I thought, people who had coached me said that, somebody is going to take you into the conversation because people are being noticed. And, being inclusive is one trait that people look into. And I was saying, somebody will give me a chance. Nobody gave me a chance. So then, what happened was that there was this invigilator or, the observer who was sitting somewhere. And, I just happened to look at him and I caught his eye, or he saw me as well. And I thought he was noticing that I was not getting an opportunity to speak. So again, I kept trying twice or thrice, and somewhere I thought that, I'm possibly going to get some sympathy from him. I don't know why I thought that. So because of the way I'd been coached, I said, okay, maybe I'll have a sympathy. So I started walking away from my group. And can you believe it that I walked away from my group, reached the door. None of my batch people in my group called me back. This observer didn't even look at me, and I could have easily walked out of the door, and I knew it was over for me at that point in time. But I put my head down, went back to my group, tried again, but that's how I knew that IIM was not for me. But
it's first of all, thank you so much for sharing something which leaders normally don't, somewhere where you felt you didn't do your best. And I think we talk about all kinds of leadership in the program. And one of the message we kind of try to say is that there are various kinds of leadership, and each leader can find his or her space and excel. It was lovely to hear from someone, because there is this general assumption that leadership means I can speak loudly in a group, be heard. And here you were, in such humble words, telling about a story where you didn't make it. And
I mean, I certainly think that it taught me a lot. It certainly taught me a lot. It certainly told me that I need to prepare better. I also thought that my training was unidimensional. I'm not saying that the person who trained me did not train me well enough, but maybe I needed to sort of do more. Again, that was just a reflection that I could ace the exams, the written exams, but and it's not as if that, I had any less opportunity, but I knew that this was an important step, but somehow I possibly didn't prepare for it well enough, did not get enough advice, did not seek enough advice. And then when it came to the day or in the moment, because it was not just Joka, I mean, the other the other three were also there. I didn't get through any. And of course, I mean, I'm just sharing, even Jamna Lal, I mean, I didn't make any of the five. So it taught me a lot. I mean, those really taught me a lot. Of course, I went back into a shell, because when you join CA, which is easy to get in and hard to get out, as you were saying earlier, I again went back into a bit of a shell. But certainly, it made me realize that one, I need to not just keep quiet and do my work and just move away. At least I need to do some basic conversation with people around me and make sure that they know a little bit about me. But more importantly, I think it helped me in conversing with the people that I worked with. And possibly that is the reason that, many of the clients that I worked since 91, 92, many of them are still good acquaintances. I mean, many of them are very, very old now, but, they're still well known to me. There is a lot of regard that I have with many of them. Many of them have long retired. And the other thing which I must say is that, because you invest time in, with your teams and getting to know your teams well and stuff like that, I think it's also helped me over the years have a very supportive ecosystem. Because I would certainly say to you today, sitting here and very humbly, that in the journey that I have had, and I mentioned my father, my wife, and many other of our family members, but a lot of that goes to the team that has worked with me and that I've had the opportunity to work with me. They have a lot to contribute. They've had a lot of reason for where I am today. I think I owe a lot to them. And possibly they gave it to me because I do invest in those relationships and spending time with them, getting to know them better. And I think it can never harm.
And thank you so much, Sanjeev, because the power of deep relationship versus the power of wide relationships, or which might not be as deep, because deep relationships take a lot out of you as a person in energy and time. And it was so nice for you to bring the importance of deep relationships, which kind of takes me logically to the point when you were being considered from one amongst many for the leadership position or already chosen.
Yeah.
And that's another moment where people are trying to evaluate you on your skills, but also on your persona and your ability to do wide relationship. How was that journey? Because I'm sure that was another significant moment, 2021, you said.
21, yeah. So again, honestly, some of these things, I mean, for me, it's never been planned too well. I'm not sure if I said, but I did sciences in school, economics in college, and then, of course, I did accountancy.
DU, correct?
Yes.
Wait, which one?
Kirorimal College.
Kirorimal.
So,
Amitabh Bachchan.
That's right. So economics and then sciences, economics, and then accountancy. So I didn't plan for any of this. Back in 2020, when the process, we are the only big four where there is a formal election where partners actually physically vote for.
As in like an election voting.
There is a voting that happens. Formal voting which happens. So until 2019, I was not even thinking. I mean, I had the previous chairperson who was there. I was requesting him, almost pleading with him to create a deals platform, because I felt that we need to get all deals people in one ecosystem so that we can contribute more to the firm. And he was not convinced about it, but somehow he blessed it. So that was my biggest thing. And when that happened, I said, okay, I've attained nirvana, and this is all that I should focus all my energies on. So we have a global program. It's called the NKTP program, and I had an advisor, the NKTP advisor that I had. He's now the CEO of Schroders, a guy called Richard Oldfield. He was my NKTP advisor, and I remember in 2019 he asked me that, Sanjeev, will you want to consider doing this? And I said, Richard, I mean, there are so many people who wish to do, my predecessor's job. I think it's very administrative. I don't want to do it. I'm a very client-facing person. I love doing 18 to 19 client meetings a week and doing my 5 to 6 media meetings. And, I know that my space, this is my space. The firm acknowledges me as somebody who can, who's really the client's person, particularly private equity, but also mid-market, etc. Why would I do this? He said, I'm responsible from the network for India, and I think the firm needs somebody like you. So I said, Richard, seriously? The firm needs somebody like me? He said, no, we want somebody who will actually get a little bit more relevance in the India market, focus on the India market a lot more, and get some client agility in the firm. And I said, okay, I'll think about it. So I thought about it for 3 months, and my father rubbished the idea in the first instance. He said, this is not for you. Don't even bother. So I didn't speak to Richard for three months or so. I spoke to my wife. She was a little bit okay. And my mother was saying that, whatever you want to do, as typically mothers say. Interestingly, I met Richard again in early part of 2020, and late 2019, just before COVID hit us. And he said, why are you not doing anything? I said, and he said, well, do you want me to speak to your father? And I said, Richard, seriously? You want to speak to my father about it? So then I came back, and what he did was that he put me to shadow a week with my with the US TSP in January of 2020. And I have to tell you that was the time when I decided that yes, I will consider doing this very seriously. I had sort of, because there was some Richard, who was my mentor, was asking me to think about it. I was giving some ambiguous, like, yeah, kind of things to the rest of the organization. But it was only that week that I spent with my US counterpart that I said, okay, let me give this a shot. Because the way I saw him conduct himself for one full week, it was 3.5 days in US parlance, with the independent board directors, and he met, and I was shadowing him. So I was in every meeting. The way he was conducting his client meetings, the way he was doing his, the way he was spending time between client meetings, etc., the ecosystem that he had built. And somehow I really loved the way he was leading the firm at that point in time. And I said, well, if this is what the job is, then I think I'm interested. I could possibly do it. And I asked him that, when do you manage the firm? He said, well, I manage the firm until 9 a.m. in the morning and post 7 p.m. in the evening. The rest of the time I wish to be in the clients. And I said, well, that I can do. That I can try. And that's when I formally put my hat in the ring, if I may. Started conversing with partners, and lo and behold, COVID hit us in 2.5 months. So a lot of my reach outs to our partners are virtual. But somehow the partners felt that I was the right person for the job, and here I am.
And when you got the job, which was obviously a fascinating moment, in the initial year or so, like you said, you had seen this US partner conduct himself or herself, I don't know, in a particular manner. What really surprised you, shocked you, and what was pretty much the same? Because I'm sure something would have been very different.
Yeah, first of all, we were in COVID. I took over on 1st of January 21. It was the middle of COVID. I think April, May were possibly the most. I'm a reasonably self-assured person. I know what I'm doing most of the time. Most of the times, I like to believe, but I must say that 4 months into the job, I really did not know what I was doing, where I was getting into. I was running an organization of 18,000 people. And there were days, I was thankful to people around me. My chief operating officer, she was a very vintage person in the firm. She retired 2 years back. As the operating officer, I was relying on her to do a lot of things, etc. But I must say that there were times when whatever was hitting us, and I'm sure all organizations, right? But we are like 17, 18,000 people. We eventually lost 13 people. And while we tried to do everything to make sure that we cared for our people and also made sure that the client outcomes were there, it was a very difficult time. Also, as typically happens in our kind of organizations, when a change like this happens, I was possibly, there were a lot of people who were senior to me in the organization who decided to move on because they did not get the job, and that caused certain amount of, upheaval, if I may. So dealing with all of that was, I must say, unnerving, and I possibly didn't love my job so much in the first 8-9 months. Ruchi was my chief of staff, and in those days, and and it was all virtual, so it was very difficult, very, very difficult in those days for me to adapt to the job, because what I thought the job would be was not what it was turning out to be. And going through that period, putting my head down again, saying that, okay, this will pass. And I must say that it did. I mean, now I'm able to converse with almost, quantity, we don't necessarily count quantity, but I still manage to do anywhere between 250 to 350 catch-ups a year. I personally spend a lot of my time externally. I'm today, hopefully, the ecosystem that I built around me enables me to run the firm and keep it safe as much as possible. I love to do things on the advocacy side, meet with regulators, meet with think tanks, and so on and so forth. Come to places like here, and of course the clients that I love, and of course somehow the media took fancy to me during my private equity days. So I love doing that. And I've got a good ecosystem which helps me run the firm, and of course people like Ruchi and others who do everything else.
And we love to have your time so that you could spend time with us. Since you moved from organization to advocacy and industry, one of the things we do in navigating the world is to start from self, organization, industry, nation, and world. As an outsider who is not so familiar with the consulting details, one of the things that the industry gets challenged about is the quality of work and the pressures and the toxicity and the manpower. What are your thoughts? And given a lot of young generation aspire to be working for consultants, so did I when I was an MBA. Didn't get into McKinsey, was my dream to get. Having seen this evolve, where do you sit on this, and how do you manage your industry in that?
So I think two things. I think first, I'll be humble enough to say that I don't think that I think the aura about consulting has gone down a little bit. Very, very, very honestly. And I think the consulting business itself needs to reinvent itself. And particularly with some of the new technology innovations that are coming in, possibly it'll have to do a lot more of that. Whether it is firms like ours, or the McKinseys and BCGs of the world, I think all of us will have to reinvent ourselves to stay current. And I certainly think that the attractiveness of the consulting job has changed. We are a multidisciplinary firm. We are on the audit side, we are on the tax side, and we do consulting work. We are a lot more on the execution side of things on consulting, a little bit on the strategy side. Even if it is somebody who's doing more strategy kind of work and less execution, the pressures are the same. Because the consulting folks want to do more execution so that they can ramp up the revenue vanity that they want. And people like us who are doing more execution want to do strategy. We will like to call it sanity, the bottom line piece, but it is not easy. So I think the attractiveness of the job is different than it used to be, certainly when I joined the firm, etc. Because there are fewer of us. Today also the boutiques have come in. So that's one. I think the second thing is the pressure is, there is, of course, you have to acknowledge that there has been a generational shift, right? And I'm not saying that people in the previous generation would, just work 12 hours and not say anything, right? I mean, it's very different, right? Today, there is certainly a huge challenge that organizations like ours have, because our clients are actually wanting more and more outcomes, right? There was a point in time where you would get paid on a time and material basis.
No longer the case.
There is still some amount of time and material work. I'm not saying that there isn't any time and material work, but a lot of it is outcome driven. Now, if you're not going to be efficient, if you're not going to be productive enough, the only way that you would do it is by putting in those long hours, right? And I'm not saying that, anybody individually is to blame. whether the person who actually spends that time or his manager is to blame or the organization is to blame. It simply is a case that, if I can be very candid, at times there is a huge amount of pressure that we take upon ourselves. And then, it's about pushing it down, right? The pressure of taking certain growth, the pressure of creating outcomes, which at times, and creating those outcomes in times which otherwise might seem harder. And that, of course, also, goes to the skill sets that the people have. I must say, in firms like ours, there's a safe room, I would say, there's a lot of mishiring. In every firm, not just ours, but every firm, right? At times you hire people and you do not have, the right skill sets for the job that you eventually win in the marketplace. So there is, on-the-job upskilling which is happening. And all of this creates a huge amount of stress. That is what manifests itself in some of the stuff that we have seen. And of course, work-life balance is, to me, it's a matter of personal choice. Somebody would say that, okay, it's part of my learning, I'll grin and bear it. I'm not advocating it either ways. But I would certainly say that these are choices. Today, with so many options, people have multiple choices. And if somebody comes to me, and there have been few of these conversations that I've had, as I said, I won't advocate one way or the other. I would do it possibly for my kids, but not for anybody else. I would say to them that, it's a choice that you have. There are multiple other opportunities in the marketplace. I'm not saying that I will not create a safe space for you. But at times there would be requirements for us to put in the little bit extra to sort of, meet some of the client deadlines and so on and so forth. That's just the nature of the consulting job. I mean, it's pretty much same everywhere else at this point in time. But there are multiple other options. People like gig working these days. People want to do different things. They want to be doing different things like pre-lunch. They want to be doing different things post-lunch. And it's so paradoxical. I mean, in COVID times, we were saying that, people are moonlighting. They're doing two jobs and stuff like that. And, left to myself, just by myself, I used to think in my mind, if people are willing to moonlight, why is it that they're willing to moonlight? Maybe because they're getting two different kind of skill sets or two different kinds of experiences. The variety is there. And doing the same job over 12 hours irritates the hell out of me. So I think there are multiple choices people today have. I think they should exercise those choices. Organizations like ours need to be a lot more sensible about the pressures that they put on themselves, and hence the managers and hence the people. And at the end of the day, I would still say that revenue continues to be vanity. I mean, the sanity of profitability, the sanity of your employee well-being still will win any day, hands down.
And you mentioned briefly there the skill part. You said the challenge begins from there. And in the rapidly evolving technology, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it is machine learning, whether it is data science, the need for constant reskilling and constantly remaining on the learning edge for the whole organization is a significant challenge, because having seen my own career, yes, when I finished my MBA, there was no telecom, so nobody taught me telecom. But as time has passed, the need to constantly reskill yourself and update yourself throughout the organization, and that should be a constant challenge for a leader or a CEO or a chairman.
Certainly. And that's why I applaud all of you for spending the time that you're doing here this week, and of course over the 10 months period that you have here, because you're investing in yourself and your organizations are investing in yourselves, and that's lovely. I mean, I recently had the opportunity, we are actually taking 100 of our partners through a similar training program at this point in time. Learning should never end. Learning should never end. It can never end. I mean, with whatever is coming to us these days, learning has to be a continuous phenomenon. I mean, if I were to put it in our context, right, I might grow up as a good deals partner. I might grow up as a good tax partner or an audit partner, etc. But today, when I go to do a conversation with a client, I mean, if I were to put myself back in 2005 when I landed up in Mumbai, if I were to just do a conversation about deals and the fact that I did something with the Actors Cycle family or with the some of the families that I work with, that was not going to be good enough. People were interested in talking about other things, right? I mean, they were interested in talking about, in those days, rupee had appreciated significantly I don't know if you remember, between 2001 and 2003, rupee had appreciated significantly. So in those days, it was going the other way around. And how does that impact private equity investments was a discussion topic, right? I mean, we were doing very, very well. I mean, the period of 2005 to 2008, I mean, it was the global economy was doing very, very well. And I think that was a time when the conversations were all about growth, all about doing new things in the business of acquiring assets overseas, etc. So unless you could converse at a very high level, just by saying that you do this was not good enough. You know, I couldn't have, I mean, I can just talk about my own career. If I just said that, okay, I'm here, I can do deals work, I can do some diligence for you, I can do valuation for you, that would have been the worst thing in which I could have, you know, the fact that I could converse with them at their level, put myself in their shoes, which is what I want them, my partners and teams to do today, is very important. Today, you want to talk about geopolitics, you want to talk about technology, you want to talk about sustainability, all these things you want to talk about, and then not just one of them individually, but you know, what do all of them put together mean to, let's say, the capital allocation of a firm? And unless you can talk about that, and then when you say that, okay, this is what will cause you growth, there is an element and there is an idea that you have, that is an idea that you concede. So I think it's a very different paradigm. And it can only happen if you continue to learn, one by experiences, and two, by, of course, putting yourself into classrooms like this. I think without that, it's going to be hard to keep pace.
And to continue the learning, we will open to questions. But before that, since you mentioned sustainability, and I know that's a personal passion of yours, for leaders who are in the room, what does sustainability from your vantage point look like? What are your personal commitments? What do you think organizational commitments need to be around sustainability?
You know, so I think typically what happens is that, you know, historically at least, sustainability, when we have spoken about it, you know, the mind goes to just CSR, right? And, you know, and it's been the case for decades, I must say. I mean, Meher was just here. I remember, I can just maybe narrate an anecdote. So we were talking about CSR. I was talking about CSR with her, and she said, Sanjeev, sustainability, even if people think it is CSR, where is the focus on the S? Where is the focus on the social, right? So first of all, I mean, sustainability looked upon as CSR, first of all, that is not good enough. And I'll come to what's next.
And even if it is, where is the social?
Where is the social element? So in fact, she encouraged me, because I was going to go and see somebody at SEBI, that Sanjeev, go and celebrate the S part. Say that, okay, we need to do more on the S part. And, you know, we did something, you know, briefed her, and something happened, and many things did not happen. But all I'm trying to say is that, first of all, we all equate sustainability to CSR. That itself is very limited, very myopic. I think the second thing is that, you know, what you make out of it. I mean, individually, what you make out of it. How you drive organizational change, and how you create enablement for your rest of the team to sort of actually create that is a question. I mean, honestly speaking, if I look at today, my own organization, 25, you know, scope 3 emissions that we are going to let out is going to be the highest. I mean, I was challenging myself. We are challenging ourselves to, based on our 2019 emissions, you know, limit our emissions to 50% of what it was in 2019 by 2030. And I can tell you, we were doing okay until last year. This year, travel is open like a vengeance, right? And it's been really hard because everybody wants to do things in person now. The question is that what do you do in the face of all of that, right? You continue to sort of make sure that, you know, at least from the tone at the top is that, you know, if you can avoid travel, you know, let's avoid travel. If you can travel by train, travel by train, you don't travel by craft, right? If you can, you know, if it is short distances, you're not traveling premium economy or business or whatever, travel economy, right? So, you know, some of these things are, because otherwise what do you do? I will still say that I've met my objectives. How? Because I bought carbon credits. That's not what it is. It is not about buying carbon credits saying that you're getting net zero. That's a very easy way if I look at it. The question is, what are you doing to make sure that you're continuing to set the right tone at the top, the right culture, to make sure that the messaging is unanimous across the organization? Because, see, it's something which we acknowledge. I mean, there aren't any green buildings. I mean, you know,
many builders are now trying to sell green buildings, but for the longest time, there haven't been any green buildings. So what do you do? I mean, we all run on DG sets and generators and so on and so forth, right? I mean, now, of course, there are a lot of buildings which are being fired by solar power and so on and so forth. So you try and make those shifts. Some of them are actually costlier.
Yes.
Than your traditional energy sources, right? But you say that, okay, we will do that, but we will economize somewhere else. So I think it's first, to me, it's mostly about setting the right tone at the top. If you believe in it, right? Don't commit to it if you don't think that you will be, there will be challenges. I mean, whether it's cost, whether it is finding the right place, etc., whether it is, coming from, if I were to come from Chennai to Bangalore, I would certainly prefer to take a train. Even though it might mean that I, get up at 5:30 in the morning, but that's okay. I mean, you still get into Bangalore in good time with all the, the distance. Why would you do that, right? I mean, likewise, Bombay, Pune. Why won't you do that? So I think, those are some of the subtle changes that you have to do and make sure that run across the organization. I think the other piece which I personally feel is very important is, in most organizations, unless you measure stuff, it really gets done. So, yes, a business leader might say, oh, I'm going to be tracked on a KPI, which is sustainability, or how many diversity candidates do I have, and so on and so forth. My impression is, my view is, and my learning is that unless unfortunately, we're all, hostage to the KPIs and the goals that are set for ourselves. And somehow, very interestingly, when the goals are set in a particular way, movement starts to happen. So I think the leadership needs to also have courage to say that, okay, I'm going to include this in my leadership goals. And if it doesn't work out for a little while, that's okay, but there will be progress. And I think that's important.
And it's interesting you say that, because buying carbon credit is not changing behavior, compensating. And changing behavior is always the bigger challenge. And the second point you said reminded me of one of my mentors used to say, inspect what you expect. And he said, if you go in any house, the dirtiest place is never the toilet, the kitchen. It's the underneath of the sofa, because it's not in your eyesight. And I think what you said is, once you make it visible, whether it's through KPIs or tracking measures. So we'll kind of open it to question. So open to question and answer, and Sheesh has got some. And thank you so much. I think Sanjeev, being so vulnerable, being so authentic, I absolutely enjoyed the session, and I'm sure, let's see how the questions come in and we'll take it forward. But thank you so much for bringing your energy.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Over to the audience. If you raise the hand, Sheesh will pass the mic.
Again, fascinating for me as to hear the life story, and these are conversations that we love. Post-night, this is like a popcorn we have had. So I think the journey had been stellar, and I think this was a time when our country also saw stellar growth. So kind of believed Indian companies can do it. Okay, IT story also helped us go beyond India. What do you think now, when you see it through the DWC lens, what do you think now, are we really at the cusp of going global, and can we really aspire to make a global impact? There are already stories emerging like Haldirams of the world and a lot of FMCGs which were unheard of, and if you look at that turnover, they are simply, they would give any multinational run for their money. But is that something which in our generation we will see go bigger, and probably is there a place for India to leapfrog all the Western economy to take its place in the world?
So before I get there, since you mentioned Haldiram, I must tell you that that's the family that I've worked for 8 years, and I'm glad that we could eventually get them a $10 billion valuation for 15% divestiture that they did. Worked with both sides of the family to get them together. I love working with family businesses. This is one of the family businesses that I started working in 2017. We got them together, families together, heads and hearts meet, create a common structure, and eventually create a divestiture. So whether they'll go global or not, only time will tell. Unfortunately, they are in a very, what is perceived as a very unhealthy space at this point in time. But now coming to the question, honestly speaking, I'll answer it in two parts. I mean, if you look at, Indian CEOs of Indian origin, which are running some of the Fortune 500 companies, I think that's a case in point. The adaptability of Indians to different cultures, etc., foreign cultures has been outstanding. And, that just goes to show that, we can do it. At the same time, I think if you look at structurally, I do believe that India has a lot of work to do if we want to be globally relevant. I think first and foremost is, maybe it is our socialist beginnings, etc. We just dislike scale. We don't like anything of scale. Anything, I know that, anybody who scales, the mindset is that there must be crony capitalism at play and this, that, and the other. And there may be. I'm not saying that there isn't any of that, right? I mean, not for me to say either ways. Having said that, why don't we like anything big? Everything, because, unless we have economies of scale, and economies of scale will only come if we actually, become big, if our businesses become big. I mean, here we have a BYD, which is actually creating a factory as large as San Francisco. Do we have even one of them? I mean, I think that's a question. So I think we abhor scale for some reason, and I think that's one of the challenges. The economies of scale will not be there. The factor cost of production will always be high. Whether we look at today, if we look at our factor cost, whether we look at power cost, whether we look at our logistics costs, all of those are higher than market, right? I mean, to the best of my knowledge, our power cost is at least 2 to 3 rupees higher than our compete. Our logistics costs at 14%, while some of them are saying has gone to single digits. It's still, we're not competitive enough. So, and we are spending so much of our current resources. The government is spending your and my resources currently on manufacturing, which maybe is the right thing to do. But unless we create the enabling ecosystem, I think it's not going to happen. And I think that's something that we keep advocating, we keep fearing. I think the second one is, we spoke about the demographic profile or the demographic dividend of India. I've been, at least the last 8 months or so, in particular, every opportunity that I've said, I don't think we are skilling our people well enough. With everything that's coming at us, maybe from the curriculum from the secondary school themselves needs to change at this point in time. We are certainly not preparing people who will be ready for tomorrow. We did a survey some time back, a jobs and fears survey it was called, I think, and it just showed that almost 47% of the people who are currently having roles where they're not skilled enough for the job that they currently have. Now, our social infrastructure is there, but not there yet fully. Our hard infrastructure is not there to support the aspiration that we have. Unless we are happy at home, we cannot create global outcomes. And I suppose, as the most populous nation, there are many of these cobwebs that we need to solve very quickly. In particular, I mean, this whole challenge of tariffs and all that, it may be the best thing that happened to us, because there is certainly, as you can see, there is a certain amount of excitement. The government seems to be wanting to declog a few things, etc., etc. Maybe far too slow to much of our liking, but it's starting to happen. So, maybe there's a bit of a crisis which we can possibly leverage. But I think we'll have to give up a stigma about thinking that big is bad. Trying to protest everything. I think we also, unfortunately, because of the K-shaped recovery that we have in COVID, not that we were not like that prior to that, that everything needs to be protested and everything needs to be done in a setup which is way too democratic. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm against democracy, but democracy doesn't mean that your progress slows, right? I mean, it can be a lot more calibrated. The decision-making should be calibrated, but it should happen. It should not be that decision-making should not happen. I mean, you look at every state these days, does a investor recate? And, we have done some statistics to show that how many of those commitments that get made between the Friday to Sunday, not more than 15% of those really hit the ground. Now, we actually support one or two of them, so I will never say that in public. But, I mean, it's unfortunate. That's how it is. So unless some of these things we solve for, yes, India will always be an opportunity. But, we'll never be able to create that big impact that we will, of course, there'll be little bits and bobs of it. I mean, somebody will do something absolutely outstanding, whether it's an innovation, whether it's a product. I mean, some of our companies are very well regarded, but it will not be. India will, like today, when we think about China, we're saying that okay, they are competing with the US on AI already. I mean, whether can we say there'll be 5 to 50 Indian companies which will do that? Maybe there'll be 1 or 2, but will there be 50? I don't know if that'll be the case.
So, first of all, Sanjeev, as part of Frito-Lay, we were looking at buying Haldiram's in 2006, and we didn't succeed. We were also looking at buying Balaji, and we didn't succeed because we were not able to break into those markets. I have a gut feeling that you are probably consulting the families then also.
Well, I mean, 2006, I don't know, but my first interaction with the Haldiram family was when they were trying to do a family arrangement
Amongst themselves.
with the lawyers sometime in 2007, 8, 9. But Balaji I have not had much interaction with, but the
Next question.
Thank you. I'm Brajesh from Bajpai. Thank you for sharing your inspiring personal journey and professional journey. To continue this question, since you are part of PwC and you have entered the western part of the world for the companies in your auditing, you are auditing Indian companies also. To my intention, I work for only 2-3 companies. The Indian incorporates, they are managed privately, whether the western private firms, they are managed in a way a corporate operates. Is it a brokerage to grow the scales or something?
So, say the last part again.
I mean, see the companies where we say Indian incorporates, but they are managed, if I compare with the Western standard, very privately.
Yeah.
Okay. And I see the Western firms, the federally owned firms, they are operated like corporates. Is that culture blocking the you are scaling out to business?
Well, I don't think so. First of all, I personally think that the private model in overseas market is possibly broken at this point in time, right? I think they are struggling with whether to, and most of them are actually selling to smaller private equity firms, right? Which then get, professional management and so forth, etc. I think the amount of focus, energy that an Indian business family gets to business is, I haven't seen it anywhere else. I've worked in Sweden, I've worked in Norway, I've worked in UK. I've done a lot of work in Midwest, in the US, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Cincinnati area. I can tell you that the amount of energy that an Indian business family gets to business and focus that they get is second to none. And I just feel that maybe it is also the fact that it is very unstructured, and invariably the government has a huge amount of in every business. Maybe consumer businesses, you can keep apart. There's a significant government element, there's a significant license element. I think the challenge, of course, has been, again, in the safe room, I can say that many of them actually think that they can create value by arbitrage of all kinds. It starts with tax arbitrage, right? And I think that's the challenge that they have, and that's why they don't compete well enough, right? The ingenuity of the Indian promoter, by the way, in my mind, is second to none, right? I mean, they can, again, in this room, I would say, and pardon my English, they can beat the hell out of anyone. But, unfortunately, they're used to creating value by not the formal means, because that's been happening historically, that I need to get some kind of arbitrage or the other to create value. It's only when I need third-party money, or I need to, express my financials, or, take my financials or take my business to outside a party, that I say that, okay, should I put a little bit more on the books? I mean, we all know, or most of us know, I would say, that for private businesses, as much businesses, and even today, when, there has been such a formalization of the economy, at least 25 to 30% of businesses outside books even today. Right? And I think that's the arbitrage mindset that we need to get get over if we really want to scale businesses. The second one is, because there are family setups, typically you've seen that, and typically since we have had large families, the ability to merge businesses, create larger businesses not being there, right? So it is always about my legacy that, okay, what is my legacy? That, okay, I have 2 kids, how do I separate the business? So let's say it's a 100 crore business. Let's say, including what is off the books, it is 120 crores or 130 crores. You have 2 sons or, 1 son, 1 daughter. You want to divide the business, but that business become. It's the same thing with the agriculture. The same thing happened. I mean, somebody had a large piece of land, divided into, and possibly had more children at that point in time. You divide that farm into five separate pieces. It becomes small. I think that's been one of the challenge. And because you don't create bankable projects, because it's smaller it becomes, the less bankable it is. Of course, there are State Bank and the friendly bank who's always there. But I think that is what creates the problem in my mind. And it creates, and then there is incentivization to remain small, which is now going away. But for the longest time, there has been incentivization to remain small. I mean, look at the definition of MSME. And I keep saying this to wherever I have the opportunity to advocate. A 1% entity is also called MSME. A 1,000% organization is also called an MSME. The same rules apply. Look at the PLI scheme. When we think about PLI scheme, the PLI scheme, you say that, okay, Hewlett Packard will get the same kind of incentives which some small guy will give, because the guy is saying that, okay, if I've given the PLI to HP, I might also give to this person, because otherwise in the optics will not be managed. Now, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but we try to be far too socialistic in everything that we do, and that creates a bit of a couple.
So that will block us to become a multinational. No company kind of.
I think we are unable to compete. I personally feel that we are unable to compete. I mean, what happened in 91? I mean, how is it those same businesses which went through license Raj and, which actually thrived in license Raj started competing well over a period of time? Same businesses. So I think unless we challenge ourselves, to become larger, to take some of those riskier bets. Today, people are willing to take riskier bets in, multiple of these startups and all that stuff, etc., which is also a good thing. I mean, maybe in family offices, maybe second, third generations are actually, a lot of people have said, including Mr. Uday Kotak, that, the second, third generation doesn't want to do any hard work. They want to just invest and all that. I mean, so I'm not alluding to that, by the way. But all I'm trying to say is that those risks they are willing to take. Why not risk of constructing something and making a stand-up? And I think that's something, and competing. And I think that is a part that is missing. I understand that at times the ecosystem is not supportive. People will say that, okay, what the center proposes, the state do not dispose, there is corruption, this, that, and the other. I'm not saying all of that is not there. And one needs to manage it. You can see that. I mean, even in multinational businesses, you can see that. Why is it that an ABB, which came in many years back and went through a bit of a hump, continues to invest in India, but why is there no new ABBs which are coming into India? I'm not saying that there isn't a challenge, but I do believe that as an Indian family, I'm much more adapt to dealing with that challenge as opposed to, let's say, a new ABB. I would certainly like a new ABB kind of counterpart to come in, but I certainly think that the Indian family is much more adapt to doing it, which I haven't seen as much.
My name is Kavi. Very inspiring 3 decades of personal journey with PwC. And you know that India is aspiring for net zero goals by 2070. Being an industry leader after PwC, what are your views in building an ecosystem for, especially for Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities? Because corporates anyway, they have some kind of goals, whereas how can we inspire Tier 2, Tier 3 cities so that they also can be aligned towards the net zero goals of country?
So I think, I do believe that adaptation is the biggest opportunity that we have at this point in time. And I certainly think, I can't say about Tier 2 cities, but I certainly do think that, if you look at Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, they are far more adapt to doing that today, particularly on the adaptation side. I think maybe, big city folks are a little bit more spoiled, if I may. And I do believe that a lot of the green shoots that we see actually come from smaller towns, smaller cities. More broadly,
I think it's also a question of how do we incentivize. And I do see a challenge out there, very honestly speaking. I mean, currently, I chair the ESG committee as part of the CII, as part of the CII Corporate Governance Forum. Because of whatever is helping around us, the slightest provocation in this instance has been what's happening in the US. You've taken few steps back, right? Now, once you see that, somebody who's more well-regarded than you, more able than you, more capable than you, is taking a step back, whether you are a provider of funding, whether you are somebody who is more resourceful, is taking a couple of steps back, and saying that, okay, I'm not necessarily going to be investing in these businesses, or I'm not going to be necessarily providing capital to these businesses, or I'm not going to be supporting or enabling these. And, the goal sheet on the sustainability and the ESG side should go down. It sends a very wrong message. And I think it will actually be counterproductive, because some of the tier 2, tier 3 cities that you're speaking about, which I think are doing a better job than many others, etc., will take this. This is a very, very bad signal to them. So we are trying to do whatever we can to sort of, keep a little bit of a balance in the way the guidelines are, including the BRSR guidelines which are coming in. But I think again, I talked about leadership. If you talk about business, it is going to be the supply chain. If, let's say, I'm just taking a name. Let's say I'm Tata Steel, right? Unless Tata Steel would, and by the way, they do. I mean, the Tata Group does a huge amount of support, so I mean, credit to them. But I mean, one Tata Steel does not make the entire nation, right? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that if Tata Steel wants to go green because they have CBAM or whatever else to deal with, etc., they will then have to make sure that they're supporting the supply chain to be green. And I think that is what we need. That is where the smaller business operators who are actually in the supply chain of Tata Steel and whoever else, a Motherson, whoever else, I mean, a Rallis or whoever, unless we are supporting them and we are saying that, okay, we'll help you graduate to this, because, it's like COVID. Nobody is safe. I mean, if this were to become a reality, nobody is safe until all of us are safe, right? So if you are creating, carbon emissions, it doesn't help me, because, my product is still not green enough. And I think that's where the responsibility lies with the larger corporations. The government needs to create certain amount of enablement, certain amount of financing. The other unfortunate part when it comes to, maybe I'm going to be a bit provocative here, the death of multilateralism, right? I mean, all the multilateral organizations, let me put it that way. I think they become toothless. They're becoming, more and more irrelevant to the scheme of things. Originally, they were looked upon as a mechanism by which the developed world used to disseminate a lot of money. It's not happening. It's all going down, etc. And I think that also is creating a lot more pressure on the public sector, on the governments, and then the private sector. So there is just too much that is happening. You see in COP, there is really no funding which comes from the larger nations, etc., etc. So I think that some of those challenges are there. But still, I still do believe, and considering the financial health of some of the bigger corporations, the responsibility lies with them. And if every large corporation can make it a point that if Mr. Modi is saying 2070, which is far too out, because today we are actually, now again, everybody is celebrating, coal capacities and this, that, and the other, that I'm myself going to take because that could be a matter of comparative advantage. Maybe not today, maybe 3 years down the line in the West also. If I'm going to stand out and deliver this, and I'm going to make sure that my supply chain and my distribution chain, both of them become green, that is what the kind of leadership that we need. So I do believe that, yes, tier 2, tier 3 cities, in my mind, are doing better job today than some of the bigger cities or bigger towns. But I still do believe that from a business standpoint, the role of the leading organizations is very high, considering that everybody else is constrained for finance. And I think the other piece which I would say is the role a little bit of civil society. I think, unfortunately, and again, I'm assuming it's a safe room. I think the civil society has also been moving from east to west. I mean, they haven't had a firm view, unfortunately. So I think they're moving with the motion of the times, which is a bit unfortunate.
But Sunil, just to take the point forward, like he said, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Similarly, you said the larger organization need to take the lead. The richer countries need to take the lead. And the role of Global South, hence in the developmental agenda, coal-powered, should we be the one leading the ESG and green, or should we just be getting our coal right? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you're right. They should, but we all know that it isn't, right? And I would say that yet there are examples, and I hate to give this example, but I mean, China is a great example. I mean, Beijing and Shanghai are great examples, right? I mean, they possibly are experiencing, they experienced in the past what a city like Delhi does, and they took it upon themselves. I mean, they are no less industrialized or no less developed, etc.
And far greater pollution problem they add.
So I think there is also the willingness quotient which is there, and the ability to challenge yourselves to do things a bit differently, maybe make some sacrifices, etc. And I'm told every time that I give that example, I'm told that it goes down to governance. And it becomes a question of whether you have control and command or democracy. I can see that, but I don't think that's the only reason.
I'm Shiva Nandivia from Candid Intelligence. Earlier in your discussion, you briefly touched upon the changing need from the clients and being more output oriented. I would like to learn your perspective on how the AI is likely to change the future of consulting. What can pros and cons in your perspective? Was very consulting on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think fair question. I will say to you that that's one thing that keeps me challenged significantly. And maybe I'll share an anecdote. So I was in the West Coast September, and we were. I was part of a private equity group was coming together, and they got the chief technologist from Google to come and speak to us. So as he was speaking, a question came to him that with AI and all that coming, who do you think are going to be the most impacted? And unfortunately, I was sitting in the front row with somebody from McKinsey, and he said, "These guys." So, in some ways, it's true. I mean, professional services firms, I certainly believe that we have a significant AI challenge. Because as it is, we were trying to create more outcomes. We're trying to create more transformation as opposed to implementation, right? I mean, we have done, over the years, firms like us have done well. Any professional services firm, it could be even a technical professional services firm. I think many of those have done well in just supplying the ability of their people, right, the manpower to create outcomes, etc., or to be part of the outcome journey. Now people are seeking actual outcomes and saying that, okay, your outcomes, your financial outcomes are going to be linked to that. So we were already going through that transition. Now, in that transition, this additional element of AI is coming in, which means that unless we are able to navigate what it might mean to work to leverage AI, right? I mean, it's very easy to say that, some mundane tasks will go, the associate jobs will go, and senior associate jobs will go. That's a very, stereotypical way of doing things. To me, that's also a huge opportunity because, and if we can skill ourselves well enough, we can start putting more and more, if a manager is doing it, a senior associate should do it. A senior associate is doing it. An associate should be able to do it and they have so much knowledge, so much information at their disposal at this point in time. For them to be able to figure out exactly what a manager should be doing, that, okay, what is the problem that my client is willing to solve, wanting to solve, and can I try and solve for it? Can I actually have a conversation with them which makes them understand that I see what they see, or at least I'm trying to see what they see. So to me, it's a big opportunity. You look at it as glass half full, half empty. I do believe that, the skill sets will have to be adopted faster. Maybe the designations that are there in a professional services firm will also get compressed, right? Today we have 7 or 8. Maybe in the future we'll have possibly 4 or 5, and maybe rightly so. And then it is about what flavor you bring to each one of them. But I think the biggest thing is adapting to this change which is happening and making sure that you don't fear it, but start to work with it. Because, as a multidisciplinary firm, AI is fine, but how do you build trust in any of the outcomes that that AI comes up with? I think that should be a big thing for us. And today, everybody is adopting cloud, this, that, and the other. But look at the amount of risks which are coming from everywhere, including cyber, right? So how do you create, opportunities for yourself as also an opportunity for professional services firm? And when you do that, you are avoiding value fragmentation or value depletion at your client and hopefully creating value for them. And that is a conversation that you need to have as an equal. Today, half the times, many of us do not do conversations with our clients. And I'm just sharing what I would like my team to do, is to do a conversation with your client as an equal. And you can only do that if you are investing time and figuring out him or her, the client personnel, and client, the organization. And I think that's the opportunity, and that's where we, the professional services firm, need to pivot a little bit. But it's a shift. People like, the job for people like me is to make sure that I'm enabling them to do so. But it has to be done. It's a journey that we'll have to undertake.
And you said that, Sanjeev, one of my favorite AI quotes actually come from some consultants who were talking, and they said, will AI take a senior manager's job? And the other senior manager said, no. But a senior manager who knows AI will take your job.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point you just made there.
Absolutely.
We'll come the question here first.
This is Lukesh from Candid. From a distance, as we know, PwC and the Big Four, they've been moving from the audit, taxation to consulting and then tech. Tech companies are themselves worried with AI and how to handle it and finding a challenge. On the third side, you also hear that the government also wants Big Four to come up, India Big Four to come up in India. What is actually this whole three things happening together? And you were planning to also grow the organization in the next 5 years by definitely tripling. Most of the business, you heard, was 50% is tech now for the Big Four and so on. So what is this lecture? How do we understand this?
So, you're right. Today, 70% of our business is consulting and deals. 30% of business is tax and audit. That's true. A large part of our growth is also coming from consulting areas, which is true as well. The way I look at it, or the way I can explain it, or I would like to explain it, is the following. Organizations like us would track two things: capital and technology, right? Where is capital flowing and what are the needs of capital? Capital would need to, one, make sure that it is getting deployed in the right way, it is going to the right hands. And then the people who are using capital are using it for the reasons that they intended it to, right? And then, through the ecosystem, because the capital must have come from either a bunch of family offices or from retail shareholders, institutional shareholders, that they are actually given we can build trust with them that yes, it is doing what it is supposed to do. Financial performance aside, that it is actually being, at least from a governance standpoint, it is doing. So I think that's the opportunity to make sure that we are on the capital trail. Whether it is getting capital to the person who needs it, whether it is providing the governance to the person who wants to make sure that his capital is being well used, and so on and so forth, and to make sure that there is some outcome that are being created on the capital so that the capital allocations are fair. So capital is one thing. Second one is technology. Because, technology, broadly technology, I'm not just speaking about AI here, that, a lot of Indian businesses are still on the adoption curve, that they are still digitizing their businesses. Honestly, that is what, particularly pre-COVID and post-COVID in particular, and of course during COVID, that was the reason that firms like ours grew at the pace that we grew, because Indian businesses were digitizing. That's the wave that they had missed earlier, and they used the COVID period to actually digitize and automate. And I think firms like us benefited because we were part of that journey with them over the last 3 to 4 years. Now, I do believe that after having done a basic amount of, again, in a safe room, I would say 3 out of those 5 installations are not working. And I'll tell you why it is not working. Because there has not been proper change management. There have been people like me who have gone and delivered a technology solution. And it could be an SI. It could be TCS, it could be HCL, it could be Wipro. We have gone and delivered a change solution. But the people who are supposed to use the tech are not yet adapted to using tech. 3 out of 5 of those solutions are not working as a result. And already there are newer versions of it coming. So, in some ways, the runway for us is clear. I mean, to the previous question, I think the way we'll have to deliver it and the way we'll have to challenge ourselves is a bit different. But the opportunity is pretty much there on the technology side as well. I explained the capital side, the technology side, the ability is that certainly. I think the challenge also is going to be that in this, so let me give you another example and then I'll come to it. You look at cloud. I mean, many of us would have adopted cloud. Today, people are asking, certainly the CEOs are asking to their CIOs also, that you ask me to do cloud adoption. What are the returns on cloud? And as a result, some cynical CEOs are also asking that, Sanjeev, if I'm the person who's advocating, you're asking me to make some investments on AI. What is the guarantee that it will cause the returns? Everybody is still calling US. Somebody who is more aware says, I think US is the biggest leverage bet on AI. So, that is the ecosystem that we have. So there is enough and more opportunity. And I do believe that if we can, create our own change management, there is enough and more change management to be done at our clients' places for them to be successfully creating the business outcomes, the enterprise transformation that they are seeking. The runway is immense. And on top of it, like for instance, in our Vision 2030, since you mentioned, we are aspiring to grow 3x in 5 years. A lot of it is to do, and to the previous question about what we are calling Kal Ka Bharat, right? The winners of tomorrow, whether it is coming from what I would call the mature startups of today, or aspirational Indian businesses which have actually navigated this this thing of not necessarily using this arbitrage that I was alluding to, but actually creating value by kosher means. I do believe that with all the governance infusion that has happened, with all the cynicism that India governance rules have experienced, and with the capital needs that India has, there are enough and more businesses who want to do things the right way, and that is what we are focusing on, the Kal Ka Bharat, huge opportunity ahead. So I don't think that there is a problem with the opportunity. It is about what we will deliver. To me, it is tracking capital and technology.
And we'll take the next question. Interesting you say that, because I was in telecom before I made the move. And for the last 11 years, across the globe, not only India, any country we go to, we are in the process of digital transformation. Various stages of digital transformation, various consultants and various things. And in the end, it always boiled down that digital transformation is not a technology challenge. Digital transformation is a people change challenge. And we always approached the CIO and the CTO is the one who's leading digital technology. The CHRO is not even in the room.
Yeah.
And in many cases, even the CEO is not in the room. So if we make it a technology challenge, we make the mistake that humans use technology and not the other way around. And
I'll give you another example. On Friday, for instance, I'll be in Bombay back again. And I'm going to meet my own team, which is delivering a S4HANA project, and the client teams. And the reason that we are going in is that we are actually getting closer to the launch date. And the CEO of that organization has asked me to be there, to be with my own team, which has been, burning the midnight oil. I mean, we discussed the work-life balance and stuff. But I mean, this is a pivotal moment. Until we speak, the CEO in this case, my client CEO, and I speak about the change management element that is needed at my client's end. Eventually, if the installation is not successful, what will be the thing? PwC did not do a good job. And I told him that if you want it done well, you and I should go there, stand on the podium, say that, folks, we are getting to the climax. This is what it will take you. PwC is standing right behind you. We will be there next 6 months to make it work. Honestly, I can't do it in every case, but I ask my teams to, and other leaders to do it. That is the most important thing. Whether, technology saying, okay, I should be leveraging technology is very easy to say. That I should get XY to do this platform, that platform. Yeah. It's a decision to be made based on whatever costs, etc. But the success of the installation is really people, and I think that I 110%.
So there are two questions, sir. One part I'll ask, which is actually connected to the last 3 questions connected. But if we were to look at India as a country by itself, there are, different unique dynamics within the country. So, for example, we have a lot of components, but we also in education encourage people to become employees.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you were to look at, we are pure Indian organizations, and at the same time, we are multinationals operating in India, and the young generation still aspires to go abroad.
Yeah.
So it's a very unique dynamics which our country is currently going through, and been have to work with for the next few couple of decades at least. And look right back on India as a country and how we can be progressing. So you actually alluded to it, that there's not a bright future, but there's a unique combination of India by itself. So, this not just as an individual, but in the way, how do you look at India from an outside in perspective and from an inside out perspective? If you can throw a little more light on that. And second question is, if you were to talk to your younger self today, what you probably would have spoken many teas, back in 2030 time frame, what would be a question to young Sanjeev, and how should young Sanjeev beat his life in future?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll answer the second one first. I mean, to me, I would certainly seek a guide and mentor, because there's so much opportunity for a young boy or girl today. It's we all say that you can learn from your mistakes, which is all good. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make mistakes, etc. But with so much opportunities, in every sphere, and with so many vocations opening up, even if the objective is, I'm just being brutally honest, even if the objective is just to have a good life and make some money, right? There's so many ways of doing that today, rightful ways of doing it today, that finding yourselves a good mentor, finding yourselves a good advisor, having somebody that you can confide in, I think is very, very important. And today, I think the ecosystem allows that to happen, whether it is your professor at college, whether it is somebody in the family, whether it is a colleague or whatever else. I think finding that is very, very important, because if I were to be, an 18-year-old, there's so many opportunities, or a 21-year-old as well. I mean, there's so many opportunities. I could easily get confused as to which way should I go, right? I mean, who should I be, right? And, and I do think that, coming from a time where you had to take physics, chemistry, and maths to a time where you can take physics and maths and psychology, that just shows the shift that's happened in India, right? I mean, we were very, very stereotypical in the way we used to even look at education. So I would certainly seek a mentor, guide, somebody that I could confide in, and I think that's very, very important. I do think that for harnessing India's youth as well, that is where I think this whole mentorship programs are very, very important. I mean, something what Ravi Venkatesh does, and so many other people do it. I mean, Vineet Nair is on our board, and he runs the Sampal Foundation, and I've had a few conversations with him. I think when people like them actually give back to the society and they create mentors, I think it's very, very important for us that we are able to guide our youth well. And I certainly would be overwhelmed with the opportunity that currently exists in India. I think this is the first question that you asked. Well, I mean, outside in, it appears that there is huge opportunity. It is also a bit unnerving, considering, that there hasn't been a very consistent narrative about India over many, many years now. And I'm not talking about governance or governments, etc. It's about the narrative has not been very consistent, right? And that could be scary for anyone. Things like safety, for anybody who's visiting India, things like ease of doing things, right? We say Atiti Devo Bhava, right? But we don't make people experience it at times. Even if you're traveling for tourism, I mean, India's got great tourist spots, but are we able to monetize it well? And I'm not saying business. If you're coming for business, that's a different dimension altogether. I think the challenge is that we somehow have not managed to leverage our own strengths, and that is the narrative, the lack of consistency that we have in our narrative. Yes, there will be advertisements, etc., but on the ground there are enough and more experiences that people have had which possibly give them an unequal experience, and that's what I meant by saying that okay, do the same thing consistently. Again, I'm not batting for China here, not at all, but I will also be humble enough to say that I think maybe they're giving everybody the same experience day in, day out. It was the same thing. It could be almost looked upon as clinical, right? But I mean, that's the experience that everybody has, right? And then of course, we have so much more. I mean, there is so much
culture that we have, right? I mean, there's so much character that we have in, with all the diversity that we have. But unfortunately, we're not leveraging it well enough is what I feel. That's the outside-in view. I mean, inside out, see, I mean, somebody who knows, he or she would be thinking, oh, corruption is an issue, ease of doing business is an issue, etc. Or, unless you know people in the right places, things will not work out, etc., etc. So I think a little bit of that is there. I think it's changing. The fact that we are the ones who did the whole digital infrastructure, right? Which I still believe that we don't say, I know many bureaucrats and government like to talk about it, but why do we not, many of us don't talk about it. I mean, it is a wonderful innovation that came out of India. So I think there is still a certain amount of those elements which are there, but I certainly think that there is a lot more pride that we as individuals can show, which at times I think could be, and that's why I said to the earlier question that as civil society at times, we just go with the flow. I mean, if there's something good, we should be simply proud of it, and we should talk about it all the time. But
yeah, and some of the pride can sometimes be misguided, but the fact that when I was in Africa and I used to travel to Central and Western Africa and meet political leaders, and they would tell us that, do you know your government is supplying us UPI technology free of cost for our country? Can you imagine the pride I would feel as an Indian? And it was not one country, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 23 countries in Africa we have decided to provide. Now we can't do China. We can't do China to Africa. We don't have money. We can't do America to, but we can do India to Africa. And we can be leader. I traveled to Ethiopia and they said the biggest ambition for our youth is to go and study in India. And we provide only some 55 exchange program students. So some of like what you said, rather than making it everything about past was good, I think there's a lot of good that we are doing today. And then I say example of Africa because I have traveled there and China is a separate story. I think there's a lot that we can take pride in building a proper future for the world.
I mean, since you mentioned, I mean, just look at whether it's education, where of course, I mean, we need to do a lot more. But like, look at healthcare, right? I mean, yes, I mean, you will find a lot of hospitals in Delhi getting a lot of tourists from the Middle East and so on and so forth. But just imagine what it can be. I mean, we do open heart surgeries at 1/10 of the cost. And again, the same question of scale, that why can't we do 100 times of what we do, get foreign exchange. I mean, we're talking about, where our reserves are and, what's challenging the rupee and so on and so forth. It's just about saying that I will do this, I'll do that at a particular scale, which is absolutely world class, right? I mean, I'll tell an Apollo and I'll tell a Medanta and I'll tell this one that, this is the enablement. I will create the right ecosystem for you to get 50,000 more people and go into India. So,
and then I know the questions are still there, and I hope Sanjeev you are staying back for dinner with us. We would love to. And can we just continue the questions there, because we are really running out of time. So we will do that. But before we do that, as Abhay has rightly pointed out, we should ask the Nayanta question. Can I ask Ranjan to give the context of Nayanta question and then ask the Nayanta question, because he does it much better than I do.
Will that bring out the question like in be a disappointment? We believe that, we want to look at people in leadership positions and how they stay current. So the question is very simple. Tell us about your reading habits.
Well, if I have to be honest, I don't read a lot these days, certainly. All my reading is limited to The Economist and the Financial Times and the New York Times and, of course, the Indian newspapers, all the Indian newspapers. So I don't read a lot these days. In the past, I used to read autobiographies because I thought that I could gain from getting deep into knowing some personalities and people. But over the last 7 to 8 years, it's just been staying current with what enables me to do a better conversation the next time around. What I try and also do to make up to my lack of reading beyond The Economist and the Financial Times in particular is a reflection, which I still do. I certainly used to do it in my private equity days, but I still do it that over the weekend, I would just reflect on every conversation that I had during the course of the week. And I do believe there's a lot of learning that you get when you rewind those. One, of course, because I forget. I mean, if I don't do the reflections, I will forget. And my colleague Ruchi can second that. I mean, at times I don't even remember what my last conversation with her was. But, reflecting on each and every meeting that you had, learning from them enables me to get half of my conversation the following week done. And that is how I make up for my lack of reading, but I don't read a lot.
You take notes and you reply.
I have copious notes. Every meeting, whether I'm working, whether it's an associate or a senior associate who I'm doing a meeting with, I'll have notes in 3 different inks. Currently, I'm carrying 3 different colors on me, ink pens. I'll have notes in 3 different ink pens.
Okay. Would you like to talk about a couple of autobiographies you recommend?
So, I remember a long time back, I had read on Satya. So, in fact, Ruchi had given me a book on him. And I really felt that, because what I learned from that journey was Microsoft was, in a particular zone when Satya took over. And also knowing about Satya, the individual, what his upbringing was. Even more importantly, he has a family situation, right? An autistic kid, and it is not easy. And in that, how he has managed to transform Microsoft to what it is today, I think is an outstanding story. And I certainly would. It was certainly inspirational to me, because at times we just see that there's so much to do at work, but there is a challenge at home. How do I manage the two? How do I create that better balance, etc., etc.? When you sort of go through stories like Satya's, you just feel more and more inspired. And I think inspiration is all that you need today. I think all of us are, very capable in the zone of. Somebody could say I'm 19, somebody could say I'm 21. Doesn't matter. I think it's the inspiration that you need, and your ability to reflect and challenge yourself. And that is what I learned from some of these autobiographies.
And in fact, hit refresh, and it's a book I would strongly recommend. He wrote it very early part of his leadership journey, and then demonstrated how he actually did that. And an amazing Nayanta conversation, Sanjeev. Knowing you as a person, knowing you as a leader, now knowing your thoughts, and the intensity of questions tells you how much you have sparked and how much you have inspired. So a round of applause, and thanks you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.